Hey y'all, welcome back. Today we're checking out Hüsker Dü and the birth of alternative rock.
Initially, punk rock was not profitable. Though it may save your life, seldom did it pay the bills. The music was brash, loud, and rarely ever played on the radio. But Nirvana and grunge changed that in 1991. Unlike the classic rock, metal-indebted versions of grunge peddled by Pearl Jam and Alice in Chains, Nirvana's version was a slick collision of Black Flag and the Beatles, a punk metal pop hybrid, previously unheard of by the mainstream public. But as Nirvana bassist Chris Novoselic once said in an interview, it was nothing new. Hüsker Dü did it before us. Few bands summed up the pre-grunge alternative rock scene in the 1980s like Minneapolis's Hüsker Dü.
Minneapolis?
The name came from a Danish board game that guitarist-songwriter Bob Mould recalled from his youth, ironically translated as "Do You Remember?". Starting as an underground hardcore band, they transformed into what we know today as alternative rock, a sound that would attract the attention of radio stations, major labels, and the masses. The musical groundwork they put in their 9 years of existence paved the way for the 90s alt-rock takeover. But who were Hüsker Dü? Why were they so important? And how did they give birth to alternative rock?
Okay. Is it Hüsker Dü? I think those 2 dots above the U means it's U, right? Hüsker Dü? Wow, I didn't know they were from Minneapolis. I thought they were from Eastern Europe or something. Or Britain. I just reacted to a video about the band Pixies, and the way that band formed was the lead singer guy, Black Francis, whatever it is. He put an ad in the paper asking for people to join the band. It said something like, no musical experience necessary, and influences for this new group would be Hüsker Dü, and I don't remember. Damn it. Hüsker Dü, and why can't I remember the other one? It was someone really opposite of Hüsker Dü. Peter, Paul, and Mary. Hüsker Dü and Peter, Paul, and Mary. What a combo. Okay, let's see. Chapter 1, do you remember the early years?
Before they were Hüsker Dü, the band were named Buddy and the Returnables, formed in 1979. After a few live performances playing solely covers with a keyboardist, Charlie Pine, the band started rehearsing Ramones-inspired originals without Pine's knowledge. Hüsker Dü's first official performance was on March 30th, 1979, where after several covers, the band launched into their searing double-time originals, much to Pine's confusion.
Whoa. So these 3 guys were playing in a band with this keyboard player named Pine. But then when Pine would leave behind his back, they were practicing other songs and coming up with originals. And then they go to the show and they play the stuff the keyboard player Pine is used to, but then they launch into this these other songs that they've been playing? Why?
His keyboard was unplugged midway through the performance, leaving Hüsker Dü forevermore as a trio. Guitarist-vocalist Bob Mould, drummer-vocalist Grant Hart, and bassist Greg Norton. Fueled by a bit too much amphetamine, their debut live album, Land Speed Record, was released in 1982, packing 17 songs into 26.5 minutes.
Whoa.
It was powerfully fast, but with a hint of melody that set them apart from the hardcore bands they frequently played shows with.
You know, initially we're like, yeah, let's play faster than the Ramones. And then we heard the Dickies, and it's like, well, let's play faster than the Dickies. You know, I always like to say that Hüsker was the hardcore punk band that you could whistle their tunes.
Their debut studio album, Everything Falls Apart, released the next year, is similarly fast, with the title track being the only real let-up.
It's pretty fast though.
This, along with their relentless touring and live reputation, got the band signed to SST, the independent label of Black Flag guitarist Greg Ginn, home to other influential 80s acts like the Meat Puppets, Minutemen, and later Sonic Youth and the Descendants. Hüsker Dü's first release on SST was their Metal Circus EP, which produced their first hit on college radio.
Okay. Chapter 2, do you remember college radio? I still am curious about that keyboard player. What was he thinking? Why'd they do that? That they just... it sounds like a bad prank. It sounds like a cruel thing. They kicked the guy out of the band in the middle of a show. They unplugged his keyboard. Unbeknownst to Pine, the remaining band members disliked the sound of the band with Pine's keyboard and began practicing without him, writing a few originals. So they didn't like the keyboard after they already invited him to play with them. Hart, Mould, and Norton fired Pine during their third performance and continued as a trio. So they fired him during their performance? Wow. Okay. Chapter 2, do you remember college radio? Question mark?
College radio was a big contribution to the proliferation of alternative rock in the 1980s. During the late 1970s, student-run radio stations became a mainstay in college towns.
Yeah.
Not tied to playing the hits, like top 40 stations of the day. College radio became very popular due to its music choices, expanded beyond the mainstream. So this included European synth-pop, post-punk, and indie. As well as this new breed of...
Yeah, I feel like by the time I got to college radio stations were just trying to be weird. It didn't have to be good, it just had to be obscure, and that's what they like to play, obscure stuff. And I guess they thought that gave them credit. Artistic credit, I guess.
As well as this new breed of American alternative rock. Tracks like
I blister in the sun. Sorry. Take the skinheads bowling.
became early hits within this format. And this is exactly what the replacement song Left of the Dial is about. Music that is off the beaten track, an alternative to the mainstream. College radio and their playlisting choices would be a precursor to the alt-rock centric stations of the 90s. The song of Metal Circus that got airplay on these college radio stations was Diane. Slower and more considered than the light-speed punk of their earlier work.
That was considered slower. Interesting.
It told the true story of the murder of teenage waitress Diane Edwards, sung from the point of view of the killer.
Wow. That song sounded pretty fast to me, but it was substantially slower for them. They're like, guys, let's play the slow tune. 1, 2, 3, 4, die. And I detect the melody. I can hear a popish kind of melody in there, but not popish subject matter.
Diane Edwards, sung from the point of view of the killer.
That's brilliant.
Inspired by a news article Hart had read. Its morbid subject matter was an advancement in what hardcore bands could sing about, no longer just overtly political music. It was an evolution to hardcore music in the same way Eleanor Rigby was a next step for the Beatles. No longer singing about themselves and their experiences, but looking outward, having interest and empathizing with others outside their realm of understanding. Diane spread their music nationwide and beyond. Therapy from Northern Ireland, greatly inspired by Hüsker Dü, notably covered the song in 1995.
Hang on. Yeah, the subject matter of Diane seems very unique. It must have been really unique for the time, but also really fitting for the style of music. Like, that probably just opened so many doors. I guess they're saying like Eleanor Rigby did for the Beatles, where it was not about she loves you, I want to hold your hand, like personal love story stuff. It was about other people, and maybe they're having a bad time. What?
Greatly inspired by Hüsker Dü, notably covered the song in 1995, replacing the serrated guitars with haunted cello work.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay. Chapter 3, do you remember Zen Arcade?
In 1984, Hüsker Dü released what is considered their opus,
84.
Zen Arcade.
Okay.
On that album, the band moved from being a hardcore band with a head for melody to something that is much more recognizable as alternative rock. It may be abrasive and heavy in parts, but most importantly, it's tuneful enough that it can be appreciated by people other than the punk kids. There's the hardcore thrash of Mold's Broken Home, Broken Heart, and I'll Never Forget You. But there's also piano sections, psychedelic interludes, and more deeply emotional moments, mostly written by Hart, including album high point, Pink Turns to Blue.
Oh, yeah.
And a solely...
Oh, yeah, that's very alternative rock. I could hear that in the 90s or even now, you know? Yeah.
album
Wow.
high point, Pink Turns to Blue. And a solely acoustic track in the form of Never Talking to You Again.
There are things that I'd like to say, but I'm never talking to you again.
Their songwriting duality really becomes apparent on this album. Mold more brash and anguished, Hart more interested in pop melody.
Huh.
A Lennon-McCartney relationship for 80s punk. Zen Arcade is a concept album, the story of a young punk who leaves home and wrestles with whether to join the army, a cult, or get a job in video game design. On his journey, he finds and loses love before reaching his lowest point, realizing that he will never be able to change his situation, before then waking up, the whole journey being a dream. Well, not the first punk rock concept album.
Wow. Yeah, most punk bands don't consider that kind of stuff. You know, a concept album with a story. And they were showing clips of The Master, which is kind of fitting because he joined the army and then he joined a cult. Great film, by the way. Paul Thomas Anderson. Guess me your next project. The video game designer caught me off guard, but okay. They had those in the 80s. He finds love before reaching his lowest point, realizing that he will never be able to change his situation, before waking up. And it was all a dream. The waking up and it was a dream is kind of a cop-out, like usually in storytelling. But for a concept album, that's kind of different, I guess. Or a way to ground it more. I had no idea these guys were going to be so considerate with their art, you know?
Well, not the first punk rock concept album. That's Life by Sham 69 probably has that title. It would influence the more adventurous punks going forward. Fucked Up and Titus Andronicus, sprawling narratives owe a lot to Hüsker Dü. If you think the story of Zen Arcade sounds familiar, that is probably because elements of the story are taken by Green Day for their 2004 album American Idiot. Foo Fighters' Dave Grohl was also inspired by the album. In 1995, he said,
That album was amazing. I mean, Black Flag was early on, and then when I discovered Zen Arcade, I thought, God, these people write songs, man. It's amazing. It's like the Byrds meets Black Flag, and it just blew me away. And the songs just stuck in your head forever, and they're just amazing.
Wow, these guys are doing it. I gotta say, y'all, I love the Beatles. And here they are once again, inspiring other artists to make great work. Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Ringo. Thank you, John. Thank you, George. Thank you, guys. Chapter 4, do you remember their major record deal? I wonder who they went with. Elektra? I don't know who they went with. I'm guessing Elektra.
in the Village Voices Jop and Paz End of Year Critics album list in 1984. Zen Arcade appeared at number 8 amongst Bruce Springsteen and Prince.
Yeah, that's huge. The 1984 Paz and Jop, J-O-P, Critics Poll, Bruce Springsteen, Born in the USA, classic, Prince and the Revolution, Purple Rain, classic Los Lobos, How Will the Wolf Survive? Never heard it. It's probably great. The Replacements, Let It Be. Tina Turner, Private Dancer, classic. REM, Reckoning, classic. The Pretenders, Learn to Crawl. Not one I've heard, but probably classic. Hüsker Dü, Zen Arcade. Lou Reed, New Sensations. Run DMC, Run DMC? They beat out Lou Reed and Run DMC? How are they not a household name? Right? Maybe they are, and I've just not been paying attention. That could very well be possible. Wow. Amazing.
This gained Hüsker Dü a lot of attention, the small hardcore band being ranked alongside the
From
biggest
Minneapolis.
pop act in America at the time, and led Warner Brothers to gain interest in potentially signing the band. This, combined with the many financial and distribution issues the band were having with SST, helped them make the decision. After flirting with the label throughout 1985, and after releasing 2 more albums, New Day Rising and Flip Your Wig, the band signed to them in 1986, in time to release Candy Apple Grey. Due to this was the first album to get significant play on MTV, increasing the exposure for the band to a new kind of audience.
Okay.
Hüsker Dü were questioned about the decision on the Joan Rivers show in 1987.
Are you getting knocks on this that you're coming up because you signed with Warner Brothers, which is a very big label now, right?
That's sometimes an excuse for people not to do anything, is to knock people who are...
Yeah.
With Candy Apple Grey,
Finish your sentence. Finish your sentence. I don't know what you were going to say, sir. Finish your sentence. Yeah, that is a paradox about punk bands or alternative bands. A lot of it is, Raging Against the Machine, giving it to the man, and then you sign a contract with the man. It's kind of like, there's a conflict of interest, and you lose credibility in that genre, right? Guess that's kind of what's happening here. But so many other big bands signed with major labels and no one cares. Nirvana was with a major label.
significant play on MTV, increasing the exposure for the band to a new kind of audience. Hüsker Dü were questioned about the decision on the Joan Rivers show in 1987.
Are you getting knocks on this that you're coming up because you signed with Warner Brothers, which is a very big label now, right?
That's sometimes an excuse for people not to do anything, is to knock people who are...
Yeah.
With Candy Apple Grey, Hüsker Dü set an example by being one of the first bands from the American indie scene to sign to a major record label, which helped establish college rock as a viable commercial enterprise.
Oh, okay.
Admittedly, they weren't the first 80s underground band to sign to a major label. The Replacements beat them to the punch slightly, being signed to Sire, a subsidiary of Warner Brothers, the previous year, in time for the release of Tim. After this, major labels started searching for their own Hüsker Dü or replacements, critical college rock darlings that could potentially net them a new audience and revenue stream.
But REM.
Most successful of these signings was when Warner Brothers snapped up REM in...
I just said... Yeah, I swear I haven't seen this video yet. But they're like famously known for being a college radio band. That's why I said them.
Most successful of these signings was when Warner Brothers snapped up REM in 1988, before the release of Green,
Wow.
an album that went on to sell 4 million copies worldwide.
They were huge. So, I keep on wanting to say Hüsker Dü. Hüsker Dü signed with Warner Brothers before REM did. They did set the stage for the 90s. Isn't that amazing?
Other alternative bands would be signed throughout the tail end of the
Soundgarden.
decade, including Jane's Addiction, Faith No More, and Soundgarden. Most importantly, after having their Daydream Nation album distributed by Capitol, iconic No Waivers Sonic Youth would sign to Geffen in 1990 to release Goo.
That's big.
After a recommendation from the band, Nirvana signed with the label in 91 for their big breakout success, Nevermind. Without Hüsker Dü paving the way for these other bands moving from independent labels, the grunge explosion of the early 1990s would not have happened.
Wow. Yeah. I thought their influence was just going to be musical, the art, but it was business-wise too. That's huge actually, because to show a huge company that money can be made off your art, it's a big deal. Wow. Oh, Chapter 5, do you remember Hüsker Dü's influence? Kind of.
As Michael Azerrad wrote in his book, Our Band Could Be Your Life, Hüsker Dü played a huge role in convincing the underground that melody and punk rock weren't antithetical. They took what was essentially hardcore punk and made it into something that could be played on the radio. The impact they had on the late 80s, early 90s alternative rock scene is incredible. Pixies bassist Kim Deal was famously recruited after responding to a classified ad requesting a female bassist who liked both Peter, Paul and Mary and Hüsker Dü. As well as being influenced by the Pixies, Nirvana have stated Hüsker Dü's importance. In '96, Dave Grohl said, "When Nirvana became popular, people would ask me, what's the recipe for this new kind of music? And I'd think, gee, haven't you heard of Hüsker Dü?" To me it's sort of natural, playing loud, fast, melodic pop music. That's the kind of thing I've always loved. Dinosaur Jr. were also inspired by Hüsker Dü's distorted melodic alternative rock, even following their hero's footsteps by signing to Warner Brothers in '91. Former Dinosaur Jr. bassist Lou Barlow's later band, Sabada, wrote a tongue-in-cheek tribute to them in Gimme Indie Rock, which, as well as name-checking noise rock band Pussy Galore, Sonic Youth, and his former band, features the line, Hüsker Dü's sonic influence wasn't just on the alternative rock genre. On Don't Wanna Know If You're Lonely, Could You Be the One, and even as early as Pink Turns to Blue, their heart and sleeve lyricism, served with a dollop of angst, points a clear line to the 90s pop-punk explosion, especially to Green Day. It makes sense considering that their more romantically focused songs were an extension of the emotive punk rock created by the Buzzcocks, just with added hardcore punch. Just listen to Don't Wanna Know If You're Lonely's climatic lyrics, which could slot into any end-of-the-century power pop breakup song.
I could hear Green Day doing that, for sure.
Green Day even covered the song
Oh.
for the MTV show Influences in 2000.
Okay. Maybe I haven't.
But the Hüskers' impact didn't end there. Even Robert Palmer of Addicted to Love fame was a fan, covering New Day Rising as part of his live show in the
wow.
late 80s.
Wow.
Also, with Mold being openly gay and Heart being openly bisexual, Hüsker Dü gave a lot of young punks representation within the music they
Wow.
love. Though, like the Buzzcocks' Pete Shelley before them, they made a point of not including gender pronouns in their love songs because they wanted to address universal experience.
Oh. Wow. They were way ahead of their time. Wow. Back in the 80s, it was still socially acceptable to rag on homosexuals. Gay people, bisexuals. What's the proper term? I've heard the word homosexual is not, preferred now. But anyway, Chapter 6. Do you remember Hüsker Dü?
While rarely mentioned in the same breath as Nirvana, the Smashing Pumpkins or Sonic Youth, Hüsker Dü did a lot for alternative rock. Their mix of hardcore punk and pop music was an inspiration for some of the biggest bands of the 90s.
Welcome to paradise. They will give you nightmares for a week. I'm telling
Oh, I hear
They were
it.
one of the bands that made college radio the success that it was, making way for the alternative rock stations prevalent in the 90s. They were one of the first college rock bands to get a major record deal, making it possible for 90s alt rock bands to become
That's
the mainstream
amazing.
focused sensation that they were. Plus their songs. And albums are staples of the genre. Zen Arcade was ranked number 4 on Spin Magazine's list of the top 100 alternative music albums,
Wow.
ahead of Nirvana's Nevermind, R.E.M's Murmur,
Whoa.
Sonic Youth's Daydream Nation, and The Replacement's Let It Be. while there are other alternative rock bands that sold more
Hang on,
records.
what?
Placements linked are top 100 alternative music albums.
I gotta look up that list. Spin Magazine's top alternative music. Ramones was number 1. Okay. Public Enemy. It Takes a Nation of Millions to Hold Us Back. The Velvet Underground, and Nico. Hüsker Dü. Then Nevermind. Then Patti Smith. Big Star, REM, Sonic Youth. Madonna. Wow. Y'all, I'm ashamed that I don't know more about Hüsker Dü, and I've not listened to them. I'm ashamed of myself. What have I been doing? I think I missed out. I've got some albums to listen to. Damn.
4 on Spin Magazine's list of the top 100 alternative music albums, ahead of Nirvana's Nevermind, REM's Murmur, Sonic Youth's Daydream Nation, and The Replacements' Let It Be. While there are other alternative rock bands that sold more records with more recognition, Hüsker Dü gave birth to the genre as we know it.
That's amazing.
You best remember that.
Is that a lyric in a song?
Thanks for watching. What's your favourite forgotten alt-rock band? If you liked the video, like, comment and subscribe. If you really liked it, check out my Patreon. There's some great rewards on there, including exclusive playlists, voting for future videos.
Hey, y'all, I have a Patreon too. Check it out, patreon.com/JJLAReacts. And also check out my other reaction channel called JJLAReacts Music, where I learn music. Oh, this is that channel. Check out my other channel called JJLAReacts, where I react to British culture and some other stuff. Memes and stuff. Wow. Hüsker Dü, y'all. I got some albums to listen to. I'm gonna start with Zen Arcade. All those bands that they influenced, I really like. I couldn't say I really like Green Day, but I like Dookie. Even though I don't like Dookie. You know what I mean? Anyway, this was great. Yo, I'd like to thank my patrons. I'd like to thank my Buy Me a Coffee folks. Thank y'all for watching this with me, and I'll see you next time. Later.